What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Cacciapaglia sitting on the couch making some money investing in fractional real estate online as usual. Today I'm just going to talk about three different things. A little bit about Solslot, something about Arrived, something about Lofty. I don't think any of these are, I don't have enough info for a full video about any of them at the moment, but I thought each one were something I just wanted to mention. This info's out there if you're in the Discord or if you're some of it you saw on Twitter, or just in general if you're engaged. But if you're someone who's only paying attention to one or another of these, maybe you missed some of the other stuff happening. Anyway, first thing on Solslot, this Sarava, I realized since I started doing videos that I'm never confident in pronouncing street names or cities if they're not local to me. So anyway, whatever that is, this property redeemed already. I didn't actually get to redeem mine yet. When I click on the dashboard, I think I can show you this dashboard. I don't know what these offers are. Hopefully I'm not giving you access to something. So this isn't working quite right. I contacted support, but I did it after midnight. So, I don't think that I'm going to get a response yet, but I think these are probably the things that are supposed to let me redeem my 3 Sarava DACs, but I wasn't able to make that work. I know that you can do it on this Dexy space if you find them here, and I have done this before. I actually just wanted to let them know that this wasn't working for me, and then hopefully get it to work, and then I'll use this. You guys have heard me lots of times. Really love this Solslot business model. They are still pretty new. They have a lot of little kinks like this to work out, right? To make this website flow a little bit more, be a little bit more user friendly, and actually work. And so whenever I run into problems, even if there is another way to do it, I'd rather just bug them about it so that they can get it fixed and working exactly how it's intended to. But this was really quick sale. Just let you know, I think it was already under contract when they sold this DAC. It was only, an 8% return, but in such a short period of time, the annualized return on this deal is amazing, and that's what makes this platform so interesting, right? Being able to make deals like that happen. And the other thing is, I really like that there's always some secondary way to get your things done. When you can redeem them. I think that this is this Dexy Markets thing, but for some reason I think this is different than, I think I did it on Mint Garden before. Maybe it's the same thing. I don't think it is though. I think this is Dexy Space. This is clearly something different, but I thought that when I had done it before it was on Mint Garden. I'm not sure. Maybe I could do it there too. I don't know. You guys know I'm just not a crypto guy at all. I don't understand most of this stuff. I have been able to dumb my way through this and, have quite a few of these close out. And then one of the other ones is I believe is under contract and should, it might be next month that it would pay out. So would be pretty awesome to see that. I have just had continued success with these ones. It is a good time for me to mention. Please like and subscribe. Also, in the description to this video, I have links to all the places where I'm currently investing in fractional real estate online. Just because you see me using a certain site, or I share that link with you, or I should tell you, hey, I'm buying this property or that property, or it worked out, doesn't mean that you should buy that, right? You should do your own due diligence on all these different platforms and on the properties themselves. I'm not using a ton of money on any platform yet. I just have a certain amount that I set aside to experiment with all these different sites until I'm really comfortable, and then I'll start putting more and more on. I think, as much as I get super excited about Solslot, I'm really excited about Mogul. There's all sorts of ways that things could go wrong, and so I'm not jumping in with some huge portion of my net worth to do any of this. I don't think it's a good idea for anyone to do so. But that's just where I stand on it. So please do your own due diligence. Also, in the description to this video, I have a link to the Discord I have set up where we talk about all the different fractional real estate sites. Feel free to join there. jump into any of the conversations. If you have a platform that you're investing in fractional real estate on that I don't have a separate channel set up for, let me know and I'll add it. And always feel free to ask questions in any of those. We have a pretty friendly group. I have kicked some, if you're spam or something like that, you'll get kicked out. But if you're, hopefully everybody continues to remain helpful and whatnot. But we have, it's been great so far. Especially, I feel like our mogul thread is the most, you're getting help with due diligence on everything, single property that comes up. But the Solslot one I like because Matt drops in. He's the founder of Solslot. He drops in every once in a while to answer questions, get some thoughts from us and whatnot. So which is really nice. Anyway, that is just a little bit of news on Solslot. On Arrived. So this is, they just wrapped up another week of the secondary market, ended yesterday. I put out a video earlier in the week about, how I was trying to look at these. I didn't get a single deal. I put in bids on a few. I was probably just going after ones that were too good of a deal. There were some really deep discounts that were offered, and those were the ones I targeted, or ones that I thought were a good discount, not necessarily from Arrive's valuation, but from mine that I did from my very back of the envelope, guerrilla math type valuation, and then tried to get ones that I thought would do well. I didn't get any of them. So I think a couple people in our Discord did get deals. Maybe before the next one, I'll need to pick their brain a little bit and see what I did wrong. I don't think that the order matching works exactly the same way that I think it does. So I think that must be the problem. Ike shared this in the Discord. This is from the CEO of Arrived. I thought this was pretty interesting. They've had 57,000 orders on the secondary market. That seems like a lot of orders considering they just had 2.5 weeks of trading so far. And he just had a little, this is the feed that they have each day. So just tons and tons of orders. Thought that was pretty good. I like the way, I would like it better if I actually had been able to buy some stuff. But I think they've been pretty smart about doing this short window of secondary trading. I don't know if I want them to keep it that way forever, but what they do is they put out SEC report, they like filings for all the properties that are going to be traded so that we can have up-to-date cash on hand, up-to-date debt for all the properties, and then just trade, for the following week, versus like just having these markets be open all the time. And we don't really know the state of some of these. So I think the way they went about this is pretty good, because if you're not going to get, the way that they do things, we're not going to get data in real time as far as the operations of the property. So I don't know. I think, it seems like they're happy with the way that went. To me, it makes a lot of sense. Hopefully it keeps up. Hopefully next time around, I'll be able to get some deals. Oh, excuse me. But we will see. I don't know if that's, I'll just have to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And then as far as Lofty, Odom, it's a property you've heard me talk about a whole bunch. That sale finally went through. The redemption, that sale went through last week. It took a while for them to get us our cash, right? It took them a full week, basically, from the time it got closed. The property manager took the cash, sent it to Lofty. And I think from the time they got it, it took a full week for us to be able to redeem it. I don't really think that's acceptable. I know if I were closing deals here and my team was doing deals in real life and the title company closed and investors in those deals didn't get their cash for another full week, some of those people would lose their mind. So it was $376,000 plus that hit the platform. All of it hasn't been redeemed. There's actually quite a few people that haven't redeemed it. I think some people don't pay nearly as much attention to Lofty or any of these platforms as I do. But looking where a lot of that money went, a ton of it has left the platform already. The vast majority of the redemptions that I tracked already, that the bigger wallets that redeemed, took that money off the platform, Some of them, you can see them selling other stuff as well. I took almost my full redemption off the platform today. I left a little bit on there because there were a couple little properties I wanted to nibble at still. It represented about a third of my investment on Lofty. So, I talked about, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago that I was going to liquidate my Lofty portfolio, maybe even a little bit longer. I think that I will be stuck leaving some on for a long time just because of the way their platform works and the way things get stuck. But in general, I'm going to continue to take money off as I sell out. I don't know. One of the things, though, it does seem like there has been a slight, and I think it's pretty slight, but a slight shift in the attitudes of Lofty in general, or at least in the way that they're communicating the way they think about things. In the way they're acknowledging some of the stuff that they need to improve on. So sometimes it's tough to know. I mean, they certainly have execution problems, right? Like it shouldn't take us a full week to get cash after a sale. But I think one of their biggest problems is they have a huge comms problem. So they do a terrible job of communicating, when there is a delay. So every day you see people posting and pinging them and saying, hey, when are we actually going to get these funds? Like, if last Friday they said you'll get them by next Friday, you wouldn't have that issue. But then, of course, they have to execute and actually get it done. And then, so instead they told us we're going to do it as soon as possible. Well, that to me sounds like that's probably going to happen today or tomorrow, not 5 days from now. So I think the way they communicate stuff needs to improve. Especially around like acknowledging when they've messed stuff up. But one of the things that Jerry said in the Discord recently was, two things that made me think, okay, maybe they're really starting to rethink some of the issues that they have, really understand how unhappy a lot of investors are, or at least acknowledge it publicly, right? Maybe they already understood, but they just weren't really saying it. So one was that they're going to start, I think he said looking much more closely at sellers bringing their properties on the platform. He said even more than they already did. Honestly, it doesn't seem like they've done a ton of due diligence at all on sellers. But he said, I was at least glad that he said, no, we're going to do even more than we have. Right? We're going to look at them more closely. If you've watched my channel much, I really think that they have to do something to make sure that better deals hit the platform. That's not their stance, right? They think, no, we want every property to be on the platform and then people just figure it out themselves. If that's going to be their position, I think what they really need to do is give us tools to actually vet the deals, do our due diligence on the deals, do our due diligence on the co-owners who are bringing the deals to the table. And so hopefully, this acknowledgement of, okay, we're going to look more closely, and the co-owners are the sellers, right? The people bringing the property to the platform. Hopefully this acknowledgement means, the only is that they'll actually do some more due diligence and give us more info about those, right? We have had another co-owner come to the DAO and say, hey, if the way the mortgage is currently, it's not sustainable, I'm not going to be able to keep paying it, or there's a good chance I won't be able to keep paying it. We need to figure something out. So this is on the Solano property. It's someone who I don't think is, I don't think it's the same situation as Brownfield, right? It's not. I know it's not the same situation, but it is, we're hearing that same idea though, right? That we had bought something, we expected, that this person was going to keep paying the mortgage. It wasn't going to have any effect. We weren't, as the DAO, going to have to pay that. So you're paying a certain price because you're expecting a certain return due to that setup. And now, okay, well, it turns out that setup's not, it's not something that the co-owner can maintain. And so he's asking, okay, what can we figure out here, or else there's going to be a problem. This is something I've talked about all along, right? Like, we're counting on the co-owner to be able to pay that mortgage, and we don't get any information on whether or not they'll be able to, right? Like, we might get a credit score, but we're not getting anything about their personal financial statements or any sort of their track record or history. Sometimes we get a little bit, but not very much. hopefully they really start to dig into those details more and provide them. Also, hopefully we just don't see a whole lot more where they bring them to the platform with that setup, right? I'd like the properties to be forced to cover the mortgage themselves, and then, okay, you need to find much better deals in order for anybody to actually buy them on Lofty if it works that way. So maybe by this is just me thinking out loud here. You can probably tell. Hopefully this isn't too rambly, but maybe by getting rid of that, which is really just financial engineering to me. I know Jerry doesn't like it when I use that term, and I realized I think he has a degree in actual financial engineering, but this is a term that we've used for 20 plus years in the real estate space, just to mean, you're using the way that you're setting up the finances to like juice your returns in a way that are artificial and usually often very fragile, right? Like, and it's really proven to be the case with this setup, right? That it's an extremely fragile setup where you have somebody who's paying the mortgage that's not getting the economic benefits of the property. But anyway, maybe by having to vet that co-owner a lot more, it will prevent a lot of these terrible deals from being on the platform. Not that that particular one was terrible. I mean, luckily, it's a pretty good deal if we can get occupancy up and maintain it. The cap rate at least is there to still create some yield if we can get better debt on it. But I certainly wouldn't have bought it without having at the price I did if I didn't think he was going to keep paying that mortgage. And I'm sure a lot of other people were in that same boat. But in any case, so that was number one, right? Acknowledging that, okay, we haven't done a good job of looking at co-owners. We're going to take a harder look than we have, even ones that have already brought properties to our platform. I think that's a helpful thing. The other thing he said was what? That they realize that there's a lot of properties that are a mess. I don't think that these are exact words, but there's a lot of properties that are problems. They're going to slow down trying to attract new properties to the platform, trying to launch new properties while they try to fix and deal with all the problems that they have. I think this is a fantastic idea, right? Like, I think it's very clear that they hadn't had the focus that they needed to, or had to, put the man hours into dealing with the messes that already exist. And so as much as I'm sure this is not great for their revenue to not keep adding properties, I think in the long run, it's the best decision for their business and for us as the investors, right? To make sure, okay, let's fix all these problems that we have. Let's get it. So, and there's 20 plus properties that are listed for sale in real life because us as investors have worked together to get properties off the platform that we think don't belong on there. But it will be good to have more help from Lofty attempting to fix a lot of these outstanding issues, and not be so focused on, okay, let's just keep launching properties into just this mess of a platform that's got all sorts of failing properties, all sorts of scandals and issues and bugs. And so since that, in the time since I said, okay, I'm liquidating my platform, or my position on the Lofty platform, they have done. This is probably my third video where I'm like, hey, Jerry said something today that made me feel a little bit better. All that being said, and I do think that a lot of these small things are good changes. I still took a third of the money off the platform that I had, because they continue, though, as much as I like those two things, they made some other decisions that I think are really counterproductive and not great for us as investors. So the one main thing is now they're locking trading on properties that are listed for sale in the real world. And they said, well, it's not really fair. You can vote to sell it, and then if the token price goes up, then you can sell your tokens, which is something I've done several times, right? And I don't know that I've rarely sold all of the tokens after I voted for or put up a vote to sell. But often I've sold some of them, right? Because, okay, if that price rises, and the reason I put it, wanted to sell it was because I wanted to get out, but I didn't like the price. Okay, the price went up. Let me sell some tokens. And somehow they see this as being unfair. I don't really understand why. Like, I don't know. I don't understand who this is unfair to. Um, there was some discussion about, well, maybe it's unfair to the people that are staking, that have in the liquidity pools. But if that's the case, I don't understand why they shut off the limit orders, right? Or it's unfair to people who don't know that it's listed for sale in real life. Well, that's that's the dumbest answer, right? Because, okay, you don't know. Well, what if you just put a little flag on the trading screen so somebody else isn't going to come and trade with you if it's for, so if they go to buy it or sell it, it says, oh, this is for sale in real life. Like, I don't understand how, where the fairness to those people come into play. But the real reason I think this is a terrible idea, Odom, the one that closed today, has been for sale, for a year, basically. Our first vote to sell was almost a year ago. If if people were locked into that deal just because it was listed for sale, that's mind blowing. Now, I think there's some, Odom, they actually locked that once it was under contract. And I think locking trading once it's under contract, I still don't love it, but I can see, okay, we're all stuck with whatever deal we made. And it still doesn't make a ton of sense to me, right? Like, if somebody, like, for example, I would have, if they hadn't done that, if there were some spikes in pricing, I would have sold at something below this. We got $31.59. I would have sold somewhere that netted me a little bit less than that to get that money 5 weeks earlier, and then I could have reinvested, because it was under contract for a long time, and then we had to wait even longer to redeem the tokens. So, as a platform that's supposed to be, we're this great liquidity provider, right? It's, it doesn't make any sense to me in those scenarios. I mean, like I said, under contract, I kind of get it, right? Or after it's sold before you redeemed it, that I completely get, right? Don't, just stop trading right then. Okay. But listed for sale is absurd. I mean, I think, I'm trying to think of, there's one of the properties that's been listed for sale, but it's also just operating and doing perfectly fine. I think it's Eileen. I think Eileen, had been listed. And so once it did get listed for sale, the price of that one popped quite a bit. I just sold it, right? I got out. I don't see anything unfair about that. People wanted to buy it and own it through a sale. Like, I don't really see the problem. It hasn't ever sold. It's been listed for months. It's still been operating. I just don't really like that. To me is, it seems absurd to just lock it. Or like Penhurst, that's been for sale. It's been listed for sale for probably a year now. I know most of the tokens that I own in it, I bought since it was listed for sale. And so now I'm stuck. Even though I bought it in that situation, I can't sell it in that situation. So I think they kind of make these sort of arbitrary decisions based on somebody complained about something not being fair, and they, and they're like, oh, that's not fair, let's just stop, without really thinking through like the consequences. And so that's, as much as I think, okay, they took several little steps in the right direction, I mean, they just have proven to make these decisions that are just so, I mean, it strikes me as being bad for their business too, right? I mean, they're losing out on fees from trading, but it's bad for me as an investor, right? Like, if I want to sell to get my cash 30 days earlier, so I'm going to take a little discount, I should be, why wouldn't you just let me do that? Or I want to buy from someone who wants out right now, again, so that they can, have that liquidity sooner. Like, I just, it's really strange to me that's like a fairness issue to some people. Maybe it goes under contract and you pause trading until you send that announcement out, and then everyone knows it's under contract and at what price and when the closing date is set for, and then you do some trading. Like, again, or when we have one person, one of the things too is they don't like the idea of people trading on like insider info. This is sort of a separate issue they were talking about. Well, okay, if it's the person who's in charge of that sale, don't let them trade it, right? Like, that would be an easy thing. Like, okay, we've been appointing like a single person in charge of certain sales. Yeah, I think that's terrible if they know, okay, we had to renegotiate something, so they go and sell their tokens. Yeah, maybe let's put a stop to that, right? Um, but to just say, oh, we're just, we're just don't want there to be any trading around this because maybe everyone doesn't know. It's just it's a very silly idea. Because there's always stuff that is going on with the properties that maybe somebody doesn't know if they didn't read the Discord, right? Like, or we have an eviction, not everybody read it. Are we going to stop trading then? Or somebody, tenant missed a payment, or we have a big repair coming up, we're replacing the sewer lines. Like, all these sorts of things change the value of the properties immensely, much more than listing it on the market for sale, right? Like, that's not a material change. Like, yes, once we have a contract, again, I can see wanting to lock that in then, but just listing it for sale, and I mean, that just seems absolutely absurd to me. So I don't know if that was a communication issue or what, but I mean, I know the Penhurst one is not under contract. They just said it's for sale. So really don't know why they did that. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit. I can't really talk about Lofty without having some sort of a rant, especially when I'm still just not doing super well. And so, not 100% here. Oh, I did also want to mention the video I did yesterday about, the Lando on Mogul. I said, oh, well, they said they were confident in their underwriting, but they didn't say it was the actuals were above what their underwriting. Well, they did actually say that in like 3 different places on the website. It just wasn't in the email, and it wasn't in that little blurb that I was reading. I just missed it. I think I said in that video I wasn't on top. I'm not in top form. Still not. I did put a pinned comment on that video correcting it, but I figured I'd mention it here too in case you didn't go back and see that pinned comment. Yeah, so obviously, I'm screwing up all kinds of stuff lately. But I did want to talk about, okay, so Odom, I started buying this one. It was one of my very early, maybe September or October of last year. One of my first purchases. Early token purchases around $35. So my initial purchases, I lost money on this. I didn't start to get a really large stake in it until probably 6 or 7 months ago. Overall, my total gain on the sale was, I think, 8.7%. Most of that purchase being in the last, say, 6 or 8 months. So annualized, probably better than 12 or 13%. Not an amazing deal, right? This is my worst property that I've gone from purchase to selling in the real world. In large part because, and I've talked about this a lot before, but I was basically supporting the price, for a long time. Every time it dipped below 25, basically I was buying more of it for a very long time, and ended up, I think if I had let the final ones that I bought some at like $19 limit order tokens. So, those ones obviously made a great profit on. And then they froze the trading without, we had no warning. This was, I think, one of the first ones they froze the trading on. So I missed out on buying more. I had actually been planning to, for all of the problems that we had, right? We had to put a new roof on. We gave them the discount because there were foundation issues. We went through a bunch of different attempts to sell it, like trying to sell it as a cash offer to Open Door, tried to sell it as owner finance deal, finally dropped it down to just a low price, but just a regular sale. Through all of that, and again, we started talking about selling it a year ago. The market was different, right? And so even with all those problems, still made 8.7% on it, right? So pretty happy with it. It's obviously not anywhere near my best deal. Although again, I think annualized, it's probably low to mid-teens, so it's not terrible. It is why I just keep putting money into these properties on Lofty, right? Like, I think if you're buying at a low enough basis, You're making sure that the DAO actually owns the title, right? Because that's an issue in some of them. And it doesn't have a ton of debt, because some of these DAOs now have so much debt that, you might have a negative number when you sell, right? Or obviously you're not going to pay money to sell it. I mean, that happens sometimes, but I don't think we'd ever get a vote for that to go through. But I think that's, as long as you're careful about all those things, it strikes me as still being the best opportunity on the platform. And so even with this one huge one that was pretty low, blended with all my exits, I'm still at about a 17% average exit from, purchase to sale, which is, really can't complain about that when this is couch money, right? And so this is the first one that it was a pretty big chunk of money. I had, what did I have? My redemption was like 16,700, somewhere around that, maybe somewhere around that. And I had put, and that represented, I think I made $1,300. So I guess I had 15 something. And this is including my fees. I'm not going off. You can't use Lofty's numbers if you're doing these calculations, right? You've got to, I don't know, maybe their new basis calculation is better, but the one that they're showing in the UI is still off. I think you just can look in your, somewhere else and see it. But anyway, I use the numbers on Lofty Assist and my own records to figure out what I actually have in properties. I think you still should do that. But even with that, I made like $1.50, somewhere right around $1.50 per token. So not, maybe a little bit less. Anyway, not a ton of money. But nothing to be too upset about either. So I don't know. It's why I left a little bit of my redemption funds on here, bought a little bit more of a few of the properties that I want to sell. I probably would have left more on if they hadn't locked trading on two of the ones that I wanted to buy more tokens in. So again, I mean, I just think that was such I just really don't understand that decision. I don't see the argument that it's actually unfair, to somebody who doesn't know that it's selling, because, well, one, I'm trading with the AMM, right? So like, they don't know anything. It's a pool, right? So, okay. But if you just think, okay, what you're really trying to do is protect the USDC stakers or something like that, well, okay, that's a different story, right? If that's what's going on, then just stop trading in the pools, but still let me limit order sell. And then people that want to get out early can, and people that want to buy in, hoping, to get a little bit of arbitrage, have that opportunity. I mean, one of the things is, like, even a property that's under contract, that doesn't really mean anything, right? Like, lots of contracts fall through. Most contracts in today's world have some kind of renegotiation happening. I don't know if most, but it seems like most in my business today. Get something under contract, you do your inspection, you end up giving up more money. So like, it's not as if like it's some guaranteed set money that we're getting in the future, so let's just lock that in. And the idea of like, okay, we voted for a sale, so now I have to stay in it until we get through the sale, also seems really silly, right? Like, we voted to change managers. Should I be stuck as long as we have that manager? Like, make me live with that decision. I don't know. I think it seems like that they just make very arbitrary decisions that are, and don't really think through how much this is going to hurt some of the people that invest in there, or just like, be a frustration or a cause of like just one more reason why I would not want to be on here after there being a couple little steps in the right direction. Still not too excited, but I don't know. I mean, and I know I'm very critical of Lofty. I really want the platform to succeed. I very much like, there's a lot I like about it. I want there to be a platform out there that people can bring their own deals to, for liquidity. Like, I think it is Mogul, is my favorite. I like that there's somebody picking deals, and it's great for us as investors. But I also think that the other side of that needs to exist, right? Where you have something that's good for the people that just have properties and want to use the platform to sort of develop their own investors, right? Use it sort of like how Earl has, where he's brought several properties. He's going and buying properties just to bring onto the platform. It's not that he's buying them to like, he's not just, okay, I've held this for 10 years and I want to exit somewhere and that's my exit liquidity. He's trying to like bring people along for the ride, right? And I think that sort of setup, Lofty is the only one doing that. I'd like them to succeed at it, because I think that there's a real need for that. But I think until they sort of get their a handle on a lot of different problems, and I do still plan to do another video on like, okay, these are all the things I think we can do as a community to fix it. I've kind of given up on trying to us all pressure Lofty to do certain things. Although it seems like it's worked a little bit, right? Like if we are a united voice in complaining about certain things, we start to see some stuff get done. I think the ULD, we saw a lot of pressure from the community and they finally jumped on that after a very long time. Few other things, maybe it's helpful when we work together. But I think the more important thing that we can do is operate sort of as a collective in, come up with some best practices as far as how we handle governance as DAOs. Because they're, like, for example, and like certain things like sales, like appointing somebody in charge of the sale, like that's just worked so much better than having 10 votes throughout the sale process. Obviously, there's some refinement that could go on around doing that. Working on some guardrails that we expect to be inside of the operating agreements for these things, right? Like, it'd be great if some of the more professional co-owners who've brought several properties onto the platform, were a little bit thoughtful about, okay, let's create some of our own structure in these operating agreements. Let's not just use, the basically useless template that they've all followed so far, like that don't cover a lot of things that I think should be in an operating agreement. And then as a community, just all, work together to do due diligence, to demand more from co-owners who are putting stuff up. I mean, that's one of the reasons I've been doing these videos, is sort of like when a new property comes up, to let you know all the questions I'd like to ask, and then hopefully we ask all those questions, right? And like sometimes I've already decided I'm not going to invest in that deal, so I'm not going to bug the co-owner about X, Y, and Z, but I just want people to think about, okay, or just alert them to things that maybe they wouldn't have thought about otherwise. I don't know. I don't know why I'm starting to talk about all that. That's the separate video I'm going to do. I don't know why I'm talking about it now. Obviously, again, because I'm just rambling at 3 a.m. I slept almost all day. Still not doing super well. Nothing to worry about. It is, I think I've talked about this before. I just have a chronic disease. Some years are much worse for me than others. I kind of go up and down quite a bit. And it does just kind of make me a little bit, my brain is not 100% here for the days. Like I just basically am way more tired than I should be for no real reason. I'll get past that again. I expect to. I always do. And that's when I will try to put together a more coherent video about that. These were all just, 3 little things I wanted to mention. And now sat here, talked to you for 38 minutes. Sorry if I've wasted your time. Hopefully some of that stuff was useful. If you got out of Odom and you're still watching this, did you take money off? Did you take any off? Did you take it all off? A little bit? Did you split it? Is anybody else also? Yeah, go ahead and put that in the comments or in the Discord. The other thing, is anybody else bothered by this freezing trading issue when something's listed for sale? Like, not just under contract, but listed for sale. We're doing that now. Is mind blowing to me. I don't really understand. Or was that just an error that they did? Because there's a whole bunch that are listed for sale, and some of them are still trading. So I don't know what's going on there. Like Lipford, I bought some today. It's been listed for sale for weeks. So I don't really know, but I know that's what they told me when my Penhurst one failed. They said, well, it's listed for sale. It's not under contract as far as I know. So I don't know. Anyway, if I'm curious to hear people's opinions on that. And that's really it. I think that's everything I'm going to talk about today. So, let's see. until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Yeah, I'm going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.